everything that we're building is kind of like a reconstruction of the learnings from Ethereum and all the primitives and tools and flashlights that you need to be able to rebuild DeFi on Bitcoin's design.
Two of my favorite men in all of Bitcoin, by the way. I mean, we have a special relationship, the three of us,
Yes,
obviously.
We're tight. We're tight.
We're tight. We're tight. We're tight. For those who may not know you, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourselves? I mean, I'll just share. You guys are the masterminds of Oyl Dynamics, which is a broad category. Why don't you go first?
Yeah, I'm Alec Taggart. I'm the CEO and founder at Oyl. You can kind of think of Oyl as a Bitcoin software company. And we have two main kind of initiatives how we can build a business. One is, first and foremost, a lot of research and development. So over the past year and a half, which is a lot of what we'll talk about today, is research that we've kind of paid for, led by our lead researcher and CTO and one of the founding members of Oyl. Really alongside really metaprotocols, asking the question, once BRC20 came out, can there be an effective, scalable metaprotocol that can add programmability, like for real?
Hell yeah. Native programmability. Yeah. Fuck yeah. I'm bullish programmable metaprotocols.
And then we open source that, and then we build products on top of it. And so we have, the wallet, we've done, Airheads and a bunch of fun stuff there. And then now working on stuff on Alkanes.
Okay, so I have follow-up questions here, but Ray, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yeah, sure. So I'm Raymond Pulver, co-founder of Oyl, lead researcher. And so a lot of the focus this past year is we did start with the, with just looking at metaprotocols broadly and like seeing what had been done to date. And I came up where it was like, if there were like a framework where we could quickly scaffold metaprotocols and just experiment, and like we can just get our hands dirty here, like, and just do it effectively, then could something interesting come out of that? And like, what are the limits of what's possible? So I think that over time we kind of solve for what that limit looks like. And we, after a lot of work and the great support from the team, we may have reached the limit, or maybe are close. But you never know. But like with the MetaStream framework, we can continue to explore and ask that question, like what is the limit of how far we can push Bitcoin, and what is the limit for even something as expressive as a programmable metaprotocol? Like what can we do just with that alone?
That's a super interesting question that we're going to have to like circle back on. Like, what is the limit of Bitcoin? This is what I think this is the $1 million question. You guys have done so much research on this question. So before we kind of deep dive into the tech that you've more recently developed, just a little bit of history. You guys didn't start thinking we're going to build a meta protocol. You originally got into Ordinals when?
So it was pretty early. It would have been ETH Denver 2 years ago.
Okay.
So like the week before, I went on a trip to New York to visit Cole, our other co-founder. And just that week, I started seeing Ordinals. And between, that week and coming to New York, I had this, spidey sense, tingly feeling that like this is more important than we think. And had dinner with Cole, and I'm like, we have to drop everything and work on this and figure this out.
Just Ordinals broadly. Let's figure it out. Let's get in here.
Yeah. And so we kind of like, a lot of our background is, we worked at product labs at a very large scale and built a lot of different businesses at the same time, both at Framework Ventures.
The three of you were all up
so
together.
Ray and I at Framework Ventures were on the lab side of the business. Yeah. And then Cole worked with me at Bybit at WindRanger, and we incubated the DAO and the layer 2 and incubated a lot of different projects. And so we kind of initially looked at it from that lens of, okay, what infrastructure is being built? What are the current teams? Maybe there's a team that either doesn't have the ability to get funding, or they need help on the product and design side and brand side, or kind of the partnership side. And so we kind of looked at everyone that was building, and we played around with a lot of stuff. And initially we're like, okay, maybe a marketplace. Well, marketplaces are pretty difficult businesses. It's a race to zero in fees. There's marketplaces that are already winning, established marketplaces that are getting into it. And then, we kind of looked over the wallet space, and this was super early. Obviously, a lot of the wallets have become much better since then. But the wallet to us was, okay, this is the point where you interact with both the consumer and developers. And so we kind of started there, and then, started doing a bunch of research on what's possible. And from building an Ethereum for the past, 5, 6, 7 years, we are very familiar with every primitive in the entire stack that's, made Ethereum work. All the data indexing, RPCs, stuff like Uniswap, Aave, DeFi primitives, how they work, how smart contracts work, what's been successful, what business models have been successful, what haven't. And so the initial vision was, let's go re-architect a lot of the node infrastructure, RPC, and data infrastructure to fit the use case of this new consumer activity, like trading ordinals and swapping and DeFi. So that was the initial research point, like how do we actually go and do this? And at first, let's build the wallet and build a backend for the wallet that's extensible.
And it was very quickly into that process that you sort of decided that on the infra side, indexing was going to be a thing. Am I getting that right, Ray, on your end?
I think we definitely knew there was a need for just general purpose like Bitcoin wallet and even Bitcoin Explorer APIs, and there existed frameworks for that, but not a really clear way as to how to access maybe previously ones that are already hosted, because the infrastructure requirements for hosting Bitcoin services generally can be a little heavier than what we're used to in Ethereum. So just getting a fully hosted service where we could just build and just start with a wallet, I think was just it covers the use case of the stuff that's already been done and just do it very well. And
you had to build stuff for your wallet,
had to put together,
okay, so and that inspired a product.
That's
basically
where we started. But then I think that just seeing that Bitcoin and indexing is so important for Bitcoin, just because Bitcoin itself is very compact, and anybody today can run a Bitcoin node. They can sync it up on conventional hardware. And that is a very good thing, and it helps decentralization. It helps, we have a large distributed network of nodes that anybody can run. It helps. It's really more aligned with the ethos of cryptocurrency at large.
Can we pause there for a second? So when you say Bitcoin's very compact, I think you used the word heavy at one point, versus Ethereum. Why is that? Is it just because it's more decentralized, and so there's more what
I
makes
mean
it that way?
Is that Bitcoin, the data structures, and that are within Bitcoin consensus are it is space efficient. It doesn't take much space to on your hard drive to run a Bitcoin node and sync it up. I think it might be could be 800 gigs. I don't remember offhand how much storage you might use, but it might be far less actually. But anyway, to run an actual block explorer API, it can be done starting from a Bitcoin node. It's just an indexing process that properly it builds a larger database from that small set of data that you can quickly query and learn for example a Bitcoin wallet balance.
Pulling data.
Just knowing how much Bitcoin is in a wallet is not as easy as knowing how much Ethereum is in an Ethereum wallet. For example, so in Ethereum that's something a standard Ethereum node can do. It's just part of the structure and design of Ethereum consensus. It's a single call to any node can do that. But for Bitcoin, you kind of have to surface, unless you're tracking specific wallets, to track the balance of every given Bitcoin wallet on the network. That's going to require some kind of framework that can index all the UTXOs on the network, which it takes a lot of space.
Not to get too nerdy, but is it easier with Ethereum because of EVM? Because Ethereum has a VM?
Ethereum, it happens to be easier because it is the account model. So the account will just track the current balance of Ether in a given wallet. And for tokens on Ethereum, they are backed by Ethereum storage, which is kind of similar to how the Ethereum balances accounts themselves work. It's just a single value that's tracked. But in Bitcoin, you have to know every UTXO that is spendable by an address. And if you have multiple addresses that are maybe derived from the same seed, you're tracking maybe a large amount of addresses and all the UTXOs they hold that can spend them. So it's that work is a little more complex than just a trivial thing that we do in Ethereum, which is just check.
That makes sense. The UTXO model as an account model is just more that's where the weight comes from.
Trade-off. Yeah. So I think the UTXO model is just it allows you, and it's part of one of the reasons that Bitcoin just has more efficiency when it comes to space, and with the reason it's survived this long and done so well.
So then you started out just sort of building your own backend infra for your wallet initially.
Yes.
But that became a commercial product sort of in and of itself, building out these sort of indexing tools that could be easily modularly sold to other Bitcoin builders.
We definitely had something that I saw that was it would be useful for anybody trying to build any Bitcoin application at a minimum. I think it does at the bare minimum you need the features of what the Sandshrew RPC is what we called it. Sandshrew, but that RPC surfaces all the data that just about anybody would need at a bare minimum to build any Bitcoin application. So we saw value in that. spent some time marketing it, and now you can sign up at Sandshrew.io. You can get an API key, and you can use it as RPC, and you can surface. You can make a block explorer. You can make a wallet, or at least get started. For more advanced usages, and custom indexing, we have another framework which I suppose maybe we'll get into next, but that is our custom Wasm runtime for a build your own indexer type a system, which we have architected metaprotocols.
Well, this is, I think, where like the story gets good, right? Because this is where we started to have conversation. Everything. I remember this was a year and a half ago. We were talking about like, oh, you could actually build a product that enabled anyone to create a meta protocol, just almost like the way I think of like the Cosmos ecosystem. You can like spin up a blockchain. Now you can spin up a Bitcoin meta protocol using this kind of infra. And that was, you call that Metashrew.
Metashrew, yes. So yeah. The metaprotocol subsystem of Sandshrew. So yeah, we like the name.
Yeah, it makes sense, you know, like as the marketer in me approves. Yeah, exactly. So I remember, I mean, so Metashrew, you were thinking anyone can spin up a meta protocol. How did that eventually evolve into you guys creating your own meta protocols?
Yeah, well, this is kind of like where there's a fork in the road in the research, right? So part of what we did is with the wallet, we're like, okay, how do we have this wallet that really understands the activity that users are doing and has, you know, a transaction feed and activity. It has a dynamic island that shows instantly when you're receiving an Ordinal or Runes assets or BRC20s, you're receiving it. It shows you the life cycle. Has like really great PSPT aggregation that you can buy across multiple marketplaces and recursively buys those. The Airhead mint, we basically built a whole PSPT marketplace to do the mint within the wallet. So a lot of that infrastructure that we built, now we have this opinionated SDK on how to build like a wallet. And like initially the vision was everything in the wallet, right? Which, you know, now kind of through experience, we're kind of going back kind of the other direction. But a lot of that work that we did.
Meaning like, actually just build apps everywhere. It doesn't need to be in the wallet.
Yeah.
Bring your own wallet.
Wallets in
wallet.
Wallets in Ethereum are like just like really dumb kind of like signing dongles. It literally is just signs transactions for you. It doesn't really know what's happening. Bitcoin's quite different because you need to do a signing wallet. You need to effectively, you know, set up a PSPT transaction, ensuring that you know what runes are in a UTXO. You're not spending things, and that really should be. You know, that's probably better offloaded to dApp developers. And, you know, we've seen, you know, developers that have done a really great job with this in the eco, like Magicine and Unisat and some of the larger ones.
So it's kind of like a benefit to the clunkiness. Like it's sort of an interesting pro and con, right?
It blurs the lines between like a personal wallet, like you would think of an Ethereum when you think about dApps to the dApp layer. So now we're kind of going down the path of, so initially it was, okay, we've got, you know, this great data. We got this product that, you know, Domo, it was said, like, if I were to rebuild BRC20, I would use this, right? But then, like, the ecosystem, you know, really didn't adopt it because you have, you know, Unisat, OKX, they're kind of like own the BRC20 indexer, going down that path, kind of want to own their own infra. They have their wallet. Casey, obviously, you know, he's very opinionated. Here's Ord, here's Runes, here's what it should look like. That's, you know, the spec and also the implementation of Runes itself. And so most people that I think were building meta protocols were kind of just like, let's do BRC20, but let's open up the ticker space early. Let's make a couple changes. There wasn't really as many people wanting to build even just small data sources. And so we kind of got to the point through learnings where we spent a year heads down on this thing. Like, we should build a meta protocol. And one of our initial like taglines, which Isabel actually helped us come up with this. I'll give you a shout out on this one.
Thank you.
So the hardest assets should be easy to trade. And that was, you know, very early, you know, idea. Everything from, okay, what with the technology that we have today, what's the best experience we can give? I mean, that started with our, you know, buying across marketplaces and aggregating those orders. And now we're kind of going down the path of how do we go build a meta protocol that is effective, that learns from, you know, the foundation of Runes and BRC20s, and actually builds a trustless, you know, AMM, something that we're used to in other ecosystems. That's good for long tail adoption. It's good for illiquid assets. It has, you know, immediacy around both the buy and sell side, and, you know, most importantly is open source and composable.
Well, and I remember when we were all working on this, you know, even before you guys were thinking about kind of building your own meta protocol, with BRC20 specifically, you were thinking like, how do we make BRC tradable from within the wallet in a way that like actually, create some liquidity? Domo was a big inspiration to you guys in terms of how you were thinking about like the actual utility of the wallet and what matters. I'm curious if you could share a little bit about, how BRC20 and Domo sort of influenced that early design, which I think ultimately eventually led to this sort of like broader design that you're describing
Absolutely.
now.
Yeah, well, initially, we wanted to be the infra provider for the BRC20 2.0s, maybe even possibly
BRC21s. Just BRC20. Yeah.
maybe even like runes for those that wanted to explore the new era of programmability, right? That's kind of what we were building. And
you had that model of like, you had that like special trading model, basically like the auction mechanism, right? Where you were like from within the wallet, people could like, pick like what price they wanted to buy, like their pricing that they wanted to get matched with. Because do you remember this? Explain this mechanism.
So we basically, one of the problems in general with kind of the PSBT,
with the early BRC20,
just PSBT trading in general, is most order books are not broadcast and hidden behind an API from the marketplace that exists. So because there's problems with like sniping around PSBTs, and they wanted to protect them. So a lot of what we did is had to go and build relationships with these marketplaces and get access to their PSBTs. But then it's like, how do you actually show the cache of all those PSBTs and allow people to buy multiple of those between, say, OKX, Magic Eden, Unisat.
So you're aggregating marketplace data, basically.
But in order to like make that happen, you have to deal with each different asset, differently. Runes and BRC20s and Ordinals are very different. Obviously BRC20s, you have like a transfer inscription, reveal inscription, and it's quite different. And you have to make sure that how do you purchase 10 of those lots in one click? So we built like this, PSBT parent signer recursive like thing, and if it didn't get picked up, it would just go to the next one. So like really, really pretty like intensive like PSBT structure directly behind the wallet. Turns out that like most of the liquidity like comes ebbs and flows, and a lot of runes like went to Magic Eden, right? OKX did a great job, and people kind of were there at the venues that they wanted. But we kind of tracked probably fairly similar to how much revenue in terms of like or the amount of percentage of users that are using swap within the wallet to something like MetaMask. It's around like 1% to 2%.
Oh,
so not great at the numbers of users in Bitcoin today.
Right.
Yeah.
So, okay. But that I think is like helpful context, right? Of like the types of problems that you were trying to solve, right?
Yeah.
I mean, like ultimately you were trying to figure out how traders in Bitcoin native asset space can get more liquidity.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really the bottom line.
And at the time too, it was, okay, either we have to support somebody who's building, an actual AMM and trustless AMM and doing that research and then aggregate in the wallet, or eventually we have to build it. And so we've done, a good amount of working with developers that were kind of doing some of those early stuff. Like Omnisats was kind of one of the first, like, we're going to do a trustless AMM. And so kind of like working with them. But, it kind of got to the point where we're like, okay, we've done all of this research. We are now experts in metaprotocols and a lot of this stuff happening in native assets. We should go build it. And I think too, seeing Casey and Runes came out really kind of changed our perception of what was possible as well, and which is the foundation of what
How did that? How was that the case?
Well, I think Domo, of course, like paved the way for all of us, and like whether you like it or not, JSON was a very easy to use format for everyone. And people were like, that was a meta protocol you could do on pen and paper, which I think was amazing.
Amazing.
And so I think that really was the fungible standard that I think Runes like in some ways evolved as like a reaction to that. And it's like, how do we make a meta protocol that like really is space efficient, really like preserves like the model of Bitcoin like, as closely as possible. And so a lot of time and thought from Casey went into the Runes protocol. And I think there's another thought leader here that kind of paved the way as well for what we eventually put together. So I think like learning from all these different meta protocols, Runes as well, we were able to, and inscriptions even, we were able to build on all those structures and bring something together that that has a lot of utility and can solve some of the problems that Alec has mentioned, like building an AMM, things like that. And even we started with initially with Protorunes is how we kind of got prepared to scaffold some of this stuff.
And this was really the first time that we started hearing the word programmable metaprotocols. I mean, all of your predecessors, no one was really working on a programmable metaprotocol. I think maybe the BRC20 team in the very, very back wings, but not publicly, was talking about this. And I remember, I mean, do you remember the tweet? Do you remember?
I remember the tweet, Isabel. I remember very well the tweet. The tweet came from someone named Isabel Fox and Duke, and I've retweeted it.
It got some retweets, but I mean, we were just jamming about like how this could potentially happen. I remember you went into like a frantic coding deep hole, yeah, and,
for sure.
And you came out and you were like, "I'm pretty sure I've figured out how we could do a runes duplicate style, a fork of runes with a programmable indexer, essentially. I mean, TLDR, right?"
Yes, all accurate.
Yeah. Okay, all accurate. And I remember like tweeting off the cuff, like did not think anything of it. And I said, programmable runes are coming, and the internet exploded.
We were all excited.
We were all excited.
You know,
we were all excited. Yeah.
It's only a good thing. Then we definitely knew who all the players were who were thinking along the same lines. But then they, kind of brought everyone to the surface. Like, well, everyone kind of got forced to collaborate in that sense. So we really pushed the space forward, I think, pretty quickly.
So programmable runes happens. This is sort of like the general idea of like, okay, we're going to have an indexer, fork of runes with an indexer that essentially is programmable, meaning it has a VM. The VM that you chose was Wasm. Is that accurate?
That's right. For the indexer, yes.
Okay. Sure. And there was evolution beyond that, right? I mean, like that is like a very simple concept. Like, you don't need to be too technical, a little bit technical, but not too technical to kind of like wrap your brain around that. Then it evolved, right? I feel like there's been like multiple iterations. I've heard multiple terms, names of metaprotocols since. Share the journey from Protorunes and beyond.
So it certainly became frantic for sure. I would maybe more of a fervor at this point. And I think I started with Protorunes. I think I had a great starting point with where you could develop something like a smart contract platform, which I realized after seeing other protocols start to emerge, is that that's really what the market fit, like what it would be. And like that's really what people wanted. It's like something that was composable, something that really could bring DeFi to Bitcoin.
Can you define composable for me? Like, what do you mean by that?
So one of the problems with a lot of like the early metaprotocol attempts on programmability, including Protorunes, is you don't have you can build. Think about it. BRC20 has modules or like these network extensions, right? Unisat built the swap module. TAP has built something similar. It's a swap module. The only
even that's a little confusing.
The only application that works is you have to bridge your BRC20 in or your Rune in, and it's a single purpose like app chain, kind of like AMM application. To get true DeFi, you need like open and composable primitives that can work together like Legos, like money Legos. So in Ethereum or Solana or some of these other smart contract protocols that are composable, you have, the base is the AMM, which has pool contracts and liquidity flows there. Mm-hmm. Anybody can build lending. A lending app can then utilize that liquidity without bridging or doing anything else. And let's say someone gets liquidated, they could use the pools in the AMM to sell assets and then, autonomously give money back to the lender or the borrower.
So you're saying, just for clarity, because this is new to me, so the module structure, let's use BRC 2.0 as like an example. The module structure is such that like the swap module in BRC20 is like, it's like they're isolated modules from each other. They don't interact with each other. If you want to use the swap module, use the swap module in BRC20. If you want to use the programmability module, you're using the programmability module, and they're separate things. Yeah. This is a universe where all of those worlds composability means that all of these functionalities within a protocol can interact.
And to be clear, the programmability module for BRC20 is this. It's a composable smart contract platform in a shared space where the AMM can talk to the lending, can talk. So what makes that useful is all the data and assets are open. You can use those contracts in your application. You can compose them. You can build something new. But that liquidity becomes shared among a full DeFi ecosystem.
But how is that different than simply just having programmable indexer Protorune style?
Well, I think that if you program an indexer to perhaps support trade, But it's not something that a developer creates as a marketplace, then deploys, and then it becomes usable by other marketplaces. That it's like a system where a marketplace that I make as some other developer, I deploy that to a shared space, and that marketplace can trade with the other marketplace. And they kind of have that same shared meta protocol. Whereas if we have a meta protocol that just is one exchange and it's hard coded, it just trades. It knows how to trade, but that's all it can do. We can't deploy lending systems that can use the trade backend as a part of the system.
So like the module example, let's say you have a swap module and a lending module. You would have to take, your initial asset, bridge it into the swap module, trade it, and then so those assets become, they're non-fungible between these two modules. To then lend that somewhere else, you would have to then either go back and go here or have some atomic swap between these two indexers because they don't speak to each other.
So the original Protorunes was not optimized for all the trading use cases. It was optimized for like specific trading use cases.
Protorunes, I think is best described as I felt like someone may take Protorunes and like finish the job of deploying a smart contract infrastructure that may differ from another smart contract infrastructure that is a separate protocol. It's like Alex says, if they can't talk to each other, but you bridge them to each other if you want to trade assets with each other. But Protorunes was a framework where we had a simpler mechanism to do a trustless way to transfer different classes of assets with other meta protocols. And so, but could also
swaps through.
It could be a swap. It could be you have to bridge them between different instances of Protorunes, which are different sub protocols.
Which is complicated.
It can be complicated. It's not UX friendly. So, but it can be useful. But it's kind of a good framework to build something like what Alkanes eventually became, and that is going to be the first smart contract platform or framework, meta protocol, whatever you want to call it, on Bitcoin L1. And that is a system where we can deploy the lending system and users can deploy the marketplaces all in the same shared space. The indexer tracks it all, and then we can trade with assets within that same meta protocol. Protorunes would enable you to have other deployments of different smart contract ecosystems that live in the same block space as Bitcoin, but have the interoperability where you can swap them for each other via a different mechanism, just like with limited interoperability between all of them.
So you could have interoperability between any of the meta protocols, essentially, use this framework.
It could be different versions of Alkanes that work a little differently, or other sub protocols built on Protorunes may have. They all have to use the same structures as Protorunes, but it's very extensible where you can build pretty much any meta protocol that conforms to that standard. They all can talk to each other in some limited way.
Would there be, if any, limitations to the types of meta protocols that could communicate with each other?
On Protorunes, as long as they use the same data structures that Protorunes defines, they have the features that we support with Protorunes is that they have you can swap them with PSBTs the way we're used to with runes. So like at a bare minimum, Protorunes will enable a family of meta protocols that can be traded together like the same way we are used to trading runes. So it's equivalent to that. But to trade them on AMMs, then you're getting into that specific meta protocol. You're trading with assets within that meta protocol, but we can always swap between meta protocols the same way we trade runes as normal.
I remember this was like a confusion for me when Protorunes first came out. We were like having this debate internally, and it took me a full 48 hours of downloading with you guys. I was like, oh, each Protorunes meta protocol basically is optimized for a specific kind of function. And Alkanes is the solution to make all of those different meta protocols
that's just one sub-protocol.
Interoperable.
Yeah.
Is that accurate?
So Protorunes, think of it like a framework to build like app chain meta protocols, right?
Okay.
And within the same framework, there can be some shared stuff between them. Alkanes is one meta protocol, sub protocol in Protorunes, and it's complete smart contract protocol within a shared space. So it doesn't need to really talk to any other sub protocol, but it can in the future.
Was there a step in between Protorunes and Alkanes, or did it go straight from Protorunes?
Straight there. Yep. Okay. That was the next one.
There was a little bit of we did try to build a swap product on just.
Oh, that's true. No, he is right. No, we did try to do the hard coded exchange that I mentioned. We actually did do this, and so we actually had a hackathon too. So there was a fellow who actually I think almost finished it, but he ended up now he's doing Alkane stuff. He likes that better, of course.
Yeah, so Alkanes is the best.
Alkanes is cool.
Yeah.
So so he's doing that now. But he actually got. I mean, this is just a fellow who entered the competition. I was impressed. He messaged me, and I looked at his stuff, and I was like, this is actually pretty impressive. And he almost had the whole thing like fully going. But yeah, that we did attempt to do that ourselves as well, independently, which was like going to be what was ultimately be the Oyl AMM product. But we decided that we had to take it a little further. So
interoperability is important for liquidity. We need to like have infrastructure, obviously, that runs this particular style of protocol. You guys are obviously building Alkanes support into Oyl Wallet. I mean, how are you thinking about, making sure that infrastructure is built out like more broadly for this universe, this metaprotocol universe, right? How do you get, you need liquidity, right? So how are you thinking about that? Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, the most important thing is that you have like open source and access to the data in a really, really great way, ability to anybody to go take that liquidity and build it into their application. Right now, there's a big problem in Bitcoin and fractionalizing liquidity because nothing talks to each other. And most of it is like either kind of somewhat centralized or you're bridging it to a standalone space, or you have to use Magic Eden's APIs or their APIs to get access to the liquidity. Whereas like a smart contract platform is completely open and anyone can access the liquidity or reuse it or add to it. So one thing that we've done is everything that we've built on the protocol and backend side, we open source all of it. So the only real kind of like soft launch of Alkanes is we just launched the developer docs. And so that has, instance of our RPC product, the Alkanes RPC, the Oyl SDK, and then like some example kind of contracts themselves. So right now it's really working on, okay, how do we make sure there's frameworks and visibility where people start to see these applications and see the full expression of what it takes to build a dApp. And that's, there's always been no like lost learnings over the past year and a half. A lot of the stuff we built into the wallet with PSBTs and the SDK, you kind of need that to ensure people aren't spending their assets. You can sign wallets, et cetera. We've been working with Laser Eyes, who they're building a wrapper around a bunch of wallets and have like a signer, and doing some other exciting stuff there on the wallet side to enable almost any wallet to be able to use Alkanes. So any wallet, even a phantom wallet, can use the Oyl AMM dApp and Alkanes without even integrating it, because we have the ability to sign it within the dApp, send and receive, all of kind of the stuff that ensures people aren't spending their assets into the dApp. And so that will have a full expression of how to build smart contracts, how to get the data from them, how to connect that to, in Ethereum, they're called ABIs. We call them opcodes. It's like the functions of the smart contract, and tie that to a button on a front end. And then how do you get a wallet to be able to be aware of that and see that? So any wallet that wants to add, even runes too, because we have all the rune stuff in the SDK, that wants to add runes or data into their wallet, they can just use a lot of our open source stuff. And I think we'd be very supportive of that.
So your strategy is basically just like ultimate builder support, ultimate dev support, education, et cetera, making sure that people know how to use your stuff and have everything that they could possibly need packaged to the extent that you're able. I'm curious because this is obviously interoperability is like, I feel like interoperability between metaprotocols is a very hot topic right now. I mean, you've got Domo banging the drum, Bob Bodley is talking about this, but at the end of the day, right? So it's very lovely and nice to have interoperability between all these Protorunes standards, but these standards won't be interoperable with like regular BRC20 or runes or whatever. Do you see this as like a fight to the death ultimately, or do you see all these metaprotocols like living together even if they're not interoperable with each other?
I think there's a way. There's a way to accomplish just about anything that we really want to. And like at this point in crypto development, there are ways you can have the like ultimate interoperability, or get at least as close to like trustless as you can for like an actual like, cross metaprotocol experience
using bridges.
Bridges, L0 solutions. I think it'd be a good topic for another show. But,
we're not going to get into L0.
Yeah,
that's too much.
We had that panel yesterday,
next episode.
Yeah.
But I think Domo's stance is and I'm kind of on the same page, is just by virtue of smart contract systems that are open and trustless being defined on Bitcoin, whether it's Alkanes or BRC20 2.0, like that is a path towards interoperability. That gives you more tools. And then you have other opcodes are going to come into existence likely. Like, that conversation is happening. So you have OPCAT or covenants or CTV or
And we have
anything else.
covenants. It's
This
no big
becomes
deal.
additive, especially to something like runes or alkanes, because it lives in the op return and on the UTXO. So I think that we have some fuzzy idea of how interoperability might work and the tools that we will use, but I think again, just by having trustless composable stuff on Bitcoin, I think it's going to be figured out. So
it's funny. I'm kind of having this download in real time. I haven't really thought about it before. I mean, obviously, there's so much talk about OPCAT and covenants and like what that means for bridging out of Bitcoin. But actually, like the real narrative might be, or like the real ultimate beneficiary of a covenant might be metaprotocols engaging with
100%.
each other.
I mean, you can think of programmability on a spectrum from like left to right. On the left, it's kind of just like send, receive Bitcoin. Then you have your PSPTs, DLCs. Then you'll have OPCAT, CTV, which are like smart contract-like functionality. Really great for bridges or ZK verifiers or double-sided PSPT order books. Some things like that. And then you have smart contract metaprotocols, which are kind of the far right of that spectrum. And everything to the left of metaprotocols can be inherited, right? And are additive to what you can actually go and do, which is really exciting because it's not like, like BitVM is a reality and the research has gotten to a point where we agree on it, or OPCAT is there. Metaprotocols are useless now. It's like, no, metaprotocols are now.
Now they're
bolstered.
the king. Now they're the
bolstered.
now they work. Like OPCAT makes metaprotocols ultimately a huge category, a universal category.
Yeah, so I think that what I really liked about Runes, when I first I was following the evolution of the standard. I think we had some initial blog posts that have kind of evolved into what we now call the spec. But the real benefit of Runes is that Casey really tried to focus on really getting not too deviating too far from what Bitcoin does natively. So I think, by that he makes full use of the UTXO model itself and extends Bitcoin directly instead of trying to fit maybe models that don't perfectly align with the Bitcoin structure. So I think that when he did that, he created a system, a way that we can actually just use UTXOs as normal to trade a new class of assets. So I think that when you do that, you get the full benefit of the Bitcoin VM. You get OPCAT. You get the full Bitcoin programmability as an extension to your own meta protocol. So in these things work in this way. These things work together, and I think that that's very powerful.
I have to ask, and then we'll get into like the fun part of the interview.
All right,
the fun part. I mean, not that this is.
I'm having a blast. Yeah, come on.
Yeah, I was gonna say, but well, this was like the technical deep dive, which obviously we love in this circle. But
more fun. We're gonna have even more fun.
We're gonna have even more fun.
So we're gonna get more technical.
Hard to imagine.
We could do it.
Let's go. All right.
We're gonna get into like Airhead, fat puppets like that. We're gonna go like full degen in like a second. But I have to ask, how did the name for Alkanes come up?
So Alkanes, well, actually, it is. It's kind of a fit between my conception of maybe what it could be a best fit for across the Oyl brand, and then also just the nature of metering smart contracts, just being closely tied to a notion of gas or what we call fuel, which is like how we control the amount of compute that a smart contract can do. And so
it's a gas reference.
It's a gas reference, but it's also an oil reference. But
oil reference.
Alkanes they describe a family of hydrocarbons that also include things like propane, hexane. So
I vaguely remember this from school.
Yes.
Yeah.
These are topics in organic chemistry, so but it's all fuel related. So I really liked, and so it's the gas powered meta protocol where we're spending fuel and we're making magic. So we tie oil in, we tie all the organic chemistry, and we find that's the center.
Perfect.
Fuel is on the compute side, not on the Bitcoin side. So Alkanes does use Bitcoin for transactions.
Fuel is is a concept that is just for the meta protocol. Because Bitcoin uses just Bitcoin for the fees, of course.
Yeah.
Alkanes itself is a very lightweight extension to what the Bitcoin already does. So we're just paying a small premium for maybe a small op return output to make our transactions doing Alkanes work.
Oh, so there is a fee on the indexer layer?
No.
It's just Bitcoin fees.
We wouldn't do that.
Oh, I was gonna say, are there extra fees? It's just Bitcoin fees.
No, it's just Bitcoin fees. No,
okay.
we there's no token that is needed to use the meta protocol. It really is just just an extension of Bitcoin. You're just using Bitcoin like normal.
Love that.
Yep. No, we
Yeah.
got to keep it that way.
The
Otherwise,
way to
like,
go.
Yeah. Fuel is just how to meter compute, so there's not like a DDoS
Fuel is
attack
free
on the indexer.
Fuel is free.
Fuel is free, but you only get
But
so much.
it represents compute on the index.
Yes, it's how much you're allowed to do in a given in a single transaction. So we give it away for free, but we don't give you as much as you want. That's all.
I was gonna say, could you? Is there limitations? Are you guys like footing the bill for that? Like,
No. There's no bill. I think it's we really just want to control how long it takes to index a block. Because if there's a smart contract that's doing like computing large primes or solving very hard problems or just doing a lot of work, then it'll slow down the entire indexer. So we can't let anybody just do whatever they want. You know, we know that from Ethereum. We've seen that in the history of in the early days. There was a lot of work before Ethereum became the model. They settled on something that were everyone could use and everyone had a shared place to use the network. And in their case, they have their fee model for how much fuel of gas you have. In our case, we were really using Bitcoin as the data layer. That's all. So we just pay the fees for just the data. So it's a lot more efficient.
And this is alpha that you got because of your experience working in Ethereum. I mean, how important was Ethereum as testnet in your personal?
I think that my entire career and all of my published work before we linked up with Alec on the Bitcoin side, I think it's all been exclusively Ethereum development. So I've done a lot of projects which became very notable in the space in Ethereum. So I think that I know everything there is to know about smart contract development on Ethereum. I know all the pain points. I know, and I've mentored a lot of developers as well who went on to do famous projects in Ethereum. And so I definitely have a seasoned take on what not to do at least. So I tried not to make the same mistakes because Ethereum was really like a proof of concept. I mean, when people first said smart contracts, everyone was like, what is that? And it took a while before people really saw it click on. And so I think that over time, a lot of new structures were introduced, and it's all very important developments as the entire history, even failed projects that at least the lessons that we learned from everything in the scope of Ethereum history really are baked into what we ended up with in Alkanes. I think even though it's a meta protocol on Bitcoin, it almost is in many ways you can build more expressive systems on an Alkanes meta protocol than you could on Ethereum itself.
Wow.
Yeah.
Hot take. Yeah. Wow. Amazing. Making Bitcoin better than Ethereum for utility.
What a thought.
Wow. Interesting. Okay. Well, that's a pretty, bold claim and pretty interesting, I think, for folks listening who are thinking, oh man, the constraints of Bitcoin 10-minute block times, blah, 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 are going to be such a big challenge.
It's surprising. Yeah. But it's true. I think that what we'll see out of the Alkanes ecosystem will be unrivaled.
Do you want to share maybe again sort of any other similar hot takes about the benefits or the unique advantages of building on Bitcoin in this way? Because I think most people think of that as we have to manage these clunky limitations and it's inherently more annoying and difficult. What's your response?
For one thing, we get to use Wasm, which is very helpful because even when Ethereum was first in development, they came up with the EVM because the thing that we use, which is Wasm, didn't exist. I think that the team that built out the Substrate Polkadot ecosystem, which it was people who left Ethereum to go found those projects
because EVM wasn't good enough.
Well, there's that, but it was also a different. It was kind of the next phase after Ethereum. The leadership in that across the teams that built out the Substrate framework, they too learned the lessons of Ethereum. They wanted to build something better, and by that point in history, Wasm itself had become more mature and was kind of ready to be adapted into a smart contract runtime.
And Wasm wasn't it's not a crypto native VM.
No,
it's a VM that was developed by real computer people.
Yeah. The real guys, they put together Wasm to just make it possible to really use things like C++, C, and native compiled languages and created an executable format that was a safe state that it could only run programs. It wouldn't affect your actual computer. It was like a VM that could run efficient code that maybe does a lot of work in your browser. So that's why it was originally. It just happens to have a very well-developed model for a VM, for the individual opcodes, the structure of the binaries. It's a very good format for portable executables that can be safe to run. So in the index case, we don't want to just run any program on the indexer. Otherwise, people would take my Bitcoin. We can run Wasm because we define what the Wasm program is allowed to do, and it's safe to execute that code. That way, people can build their own programs. They don't have to use Solidity or any domain-specific languages. They can use languages they're familiar with, like C or Rust, And our libraries are all our frameworks are in Rust, which is very, very good choice for doing smart contract development.
I was going to say, when I like casually poll people in the industry who are on the developer side, it seems like widely and broadly understood that Wasm is the best VM that you could possibly build with. However, one criticism that we get a lot on the interoperability side is like, oh, but we need to build with EVM because we need to be able to plug into all these like EVM based applications and have easy interoperability with like any applications with liquidity on EVM. What's your response to that?
So I would say that across the ecosystem of Solidity programs and sources that we can pull from and utilize in other systems, there is a much larger ecosystem of open source software that has ever been developed in C or Rust, or there's more than you could fathom, you could ever read through. So I think that
for crypto assets,
for everything. So I think that every concept and construct we've ever been able to model on a computer, I've been able to build things like other VMs into into a Wasm format and run it into a smart contract, like things you could never do. Well, maybe you could, but like things that are already done that you can do instantly on just pulling in Rust crates like we're used to, and you can build it. You can render like dynamically like images or something like that. I think there's like we can benefit from the entire history of open source software and pack it into a smart contract. We can for even for something like NFTs or even graphics, we can assemble graphics on the fly. We can generate images as we go.
So your point of view is that it's much more likely that everything descends onto Wasm than descends onto EVM.
I think Wasm is interesting because it not only does it get the benefit of what is called LLVM, which is a development from the from Apple team to make a better C compiler. That compiler backend it allows us to build very efficient code, and like so it's going to a lot like I said, like a lot of research and development, like a lot went into LLVM itself, and we have Rust as well, and like the compiler suite that we have can produce executable code that is like we can scale this further than we could ever do with EVM.
Are there any interoperability constraints if you're creating?
Well, I mean, it's funny. You could really actually compile the EVM with to Wasm if you wanted to.
Oh, you could.
Yeah, so it's like I don't know.
Build EVM applications on Alkanes.
You could make a
smart. If you really wanted to.
If you really wanted to, you can make an Alkane that runs EVM. Like,
okay.
It's something that you could do in probably like a day.
So it's like short-sighted to build. Your point of view sounds like it's short-sighted to build with EVM just to like plug into like Ethereum
I
land.
think people talk about the network effects of EVM, and what they're talking about is kind of what you highlighted, which is there is a grove of resources of building smart contracts, certain smart contracts and primitives and protocols that have worked, that have found product market fit. And it's all open. You literally can fork it. You can fork the whole thing. You have a block explorer. Yeah. You have Uniswap. You have the UI. You have everything that you need. That's why there's so many L2s. You can fork an L2 and all the infrastructure needed around EVM. I think the problem with that is most developers that I think are going to innovate and are interested in complexity and building on Bitcoin, right? Mm. What is attracted with a lot of like this EVM, network effect mentality is maybe subpar devs that are kind of LARP devs that can, go pay someone even on Fiverr to recreate a lot of stuff that, took years of research on Ethereum in the first place. And so it definitely lowers the barrier of entry for more developers and for a lot of people to go to market and try to get, we have this many people building on our whatever. But I think everything that we're building is kind of like a reconstruction of the learnings from Ethereum and all the primitives and tools and flashlights that you need to be able to rebuild DeFi on Bitcoin's design.
And to your point, you could not make this, better than EVM indexer, right? Unless you had Wasm, right? I mean, like Wasm is the key thing that sort of makes building on Bitcoin indexers like
you could make an indexer and you could attempt to fit an EVM into the metaprotocol that maybe you're architecting. People have tried to do this. I think it's like not a clear fit. Like and you also have to make kind of like hack around the Solidity compiler to make it so it's possible to really produce useful programs that map to the Bitcoin system like as easily. I think it's been attempted. I think some of the earliest ideas have come to me like when I was first building Metashrew was like, oh, we can put an EVM on Bitcoin. And I was like, yeah, you could. And like, so we'll see. And like, but anyway, like, I think that the key thing is also like, and just one thing I wanted to note is that, although Wasm was not a crypto specific project, what I should note is that in the mention of substrate and parity here, it was that team built Wasm, which I think that's how you say it, but it's Wasm with an I. And that is a version of the Wasm VM that has like gas or fuel like EVM. So that was a key development, because I think when they first were trying to build Ethereum, they wanted to use Wasm. It just wasn't really ready. And they were trying to figure out how they could add like something like gas to the Wasm VM. And they like didn't quite nail it. And they had EVM was already getting traction, so they were like, okay, we're going to use
They kind of
EVM.
messed up with their
Yeah, it was like a timing thing.
Testnet.
They're ahead of their
I've
time.
heard about this Wasm. People are very into this Wasm. Like this is.
Oh yeah, no, it's a good one. And so that was, I mean, it's nice because it's the same API as Wasm Time, which is a bytecode alliance framework. It's a very mature and more modern version of like architecting Wasm runtimes. So Wasm is a really cool, same compatible API, but they wrote it just to be, it's basically designed for a smart contract runtime, and it was meant for the substrate Polkadot, but we can repurpose it for a Bitcoin powered VM. And so that it fits pretty nicely. And so I kind of had to scaffold like a set of like a complete runtime, like again, but using those same libraries that would, leagues of research went into this. We can just repurpose it, and a lot of the work, thankfully, was done for me. Like,
there you go, the bull case for Wasm. I think that maybe that's what I'll title this section: the bull case for
bull
Wasm.
case for Wasm.
Well, thank you for that. Bull case for Wasm. Okay, so back to Airheads and Fat Puppets.
Okay.
So we have Alkanes, great name, by the way. We have this whole metaprotocol situation. We have the wallet. We have indexing. You guys have built this entire like universe. And then you launch an NFT collection, or an Ordinal collection, more specifically. When did it launch?
I think we started, I think we came out with it and started talking about that we were doing it around August.
Okay.
And
That's when you announced it.
That's when we announced it.
Okay.
And I think it was in November when we did the mint, I think.
Okay. And you
It's very blurry.
did you co-launch? I mean, you guys obviously have Arthur Hayes on your cap table. This is sort of like widely known.
Yeah.
Did you co-launch the collection with Arthur Hayes?
Yeah, so Arthur was one of our first like commits, first investors into Oyl.
How'd that happen?
We got introed through a close friend.
Okay.
That used to.
And
work
you fell in
for
love.
me.
Everyone just got along really well.
He kind of had a mandate to his team. I want to find something in Bitcoin ordinals as an investment, and so we're their only Bitcoin investment in the kind of the new era of Bitcoin. And when we right at the very beginning, he kind of pitched. He's like, "Hey, I want to do an Ordinal project."
Really early on, he was like, "I want to do an Ordinal project. Let's do it."
The idea came from him, and so we kind of put up kind of a loose structure.
And your creative team made the art. I mean, Cole et al. Cole and his team made the art.
Yeah.
Cole is your CPO.
Yeah, Cole and the With Pleasure squad. Yeah, we basically, Cole kind of presented, here's 3 concepts to Arthur. And the Airhead concept was Cole's favorite, but also it was the one where like 11 p.m., like giggling, laughing, the jokes just kind of came freely. It's absurd. It's like this commentary on inflation, just continuing unabated inflation of like, this commentary on the current time of what's happening with characters that are culturally relevant today. And it's like, okay, why don't we just put inflation on chain and do something that is you can really only do on Bitcoin with like recursive endpoints, et cetera. And so that's kind of was the beginning of it. And really like we didn't, because at the end of the day, we launched our wallet in it was like July of last year. We actually launched it. And so very late entrant to the wallet space. And if you've looked at any ecosystem, like if the fourth wallet that launches, either the other wallets are so bad and it's been a couple of years, and then like a Robbie wallet comes in or something. But typically it's the first 2 wallets that really kind of take
early mover
take a lion's share of the market. And so the wallet for us was something that we had built, but the real juice was everything that we've been doing on the research side. So how do you get someone to care about what you're doing, right? So Ordinals, like this NFT project, was a way to have a different lens of attention, to make a lot of noise, to be, somewhat vulgar, to talk about some of these concepts that are happening.
It worked.
And we've spent like months and months and months on, hand or Cole and the team on like 3D art, all the concepts, all the layers, videos, AI tools. Now we're to a point where what we've learned is we've built this community where now people are really excited about this content and really excited about what's happening. And then people are using the Oyl wallet and seeing the features, some good, some bad. Then they're learning more about what we're doing with Alkanes. And so it created this
built community,
this fissure where we're actually building community and people are finding us naturally. You have like, whether that, someone talked about it or they saw the Airhead mint or they see this really weird video where Kamala's like, doing something naughty with Donald Trump, right? They're like trying to figure it out. What's going on here? Is this real? And so now, we've found and we've learned a ton along the way on like how powerful that is to actually like, spread your message and actually, have that communication in a way that's very different than like, oh, I have to like tweet. I have to make sure I hit some narrative. I have to make someone mad to some extent. Like you can actually just really share kind of what you're doing and people get to know you better.
Well, there's no better marketing than marketing tied to an asset you could trade.
Yeah.
That's another tagline for you right there.
Yeah. Wait, say it again.
I was going to say there's no better marketing than marketing with an asset you can trade.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Marketing
Everyone want to trade a token.
Yeah. Marketing that makes money is the best kind of marketing. That makes your users money is the best kind of marketing.
So ideally the wealth creation part is next, right? But we've created a full subset of tools that really enable wealth creation. And for us, it's how do we put our best step forward on building products on top of what we built that are best in class and really amazing and functionally good. And then use that as an example to ideally get more developers who are going to build in the eco.
So another thing that's interesting about Airheads, so there's obviously this sort of community building, kind of like marketing angle.
Yeah.
But as a practical matter, you also were able to raise some money, which enables you to have less VCs on your cap table, which I think is generally a good thing, right? Like it's generally good to have fewer investors. The more money you can make for yourselves as companies, like the healthier your company is probably going to be.
Yeah, absolutely.
Was that something that was intentional for you? How did you think about that? Do you see that as like a trend that's going to continue in this space? We've seen, obviously Taproot Wizards do something similar, Ordinals instead of like ICOs,
Yeah, I think like Airheads also was kind of like one of the first, there's some stuff with RSIC and Runestone and other things that, had implications in the future. Was kind of one of the first that is like, you buy this asset, you hold it in the wallet, you get XP points. You hold other assets, you do things, you do quests, like you get XP points. And it's built
the whole game.
We weren't even going to build an XP system, and we kind of like last minute we're like, this might be interesting. And now we have this fully robust XP system that tracks, the asset value,
which
of
node
wallets
monks do you have,
and which node monks you have, and like you can add stuff to it, and so like that's like a primitive to actually continue to grab attention and to eventually, launch your protocol and what you're actually doing. So for us, like we've been very, we haven't, compared to our counterparts, we haven't raised as much money, and we have very like
we haven't had to
proactively, tried to extend that as long as possible so that we have, things that we have built that we can show, and so we're not selling a major portion of the token or the company, and are getting, a better valuation.
And your users are your investors ultimately, right?
And
like they're the ones who win if you win.
The people that are going to crush it in Oyl, they're people that are in the Discord, setting up a CLI, figuring out how to mint Diesel, like using our SDK, not even using the wallet.
Is Diesel XP? Is that what you call
Diesel is it's an Alkane. And,
it's an Alkane.
And anybody can get it, but there's only one per block. It actually is structured similar as I could make it to Bitcoin currency itself. But you mine it like similar to how you mine it with Bitcoin.
How do you mine it? Is there a mining Alkane?
It's just all it is a transaction. You have to be the first person to send the transaction for the block that claims that. And so ideally,
so you basically call it a smart contract.
Yeah,
you set up your transaction to have in the op return the right messages.
And this is the distribution mechanism
for the contract. So the first person that gets it included in a block gets the mint for that block. So it follows the block schedule. When there's halvenings, it will also have. So the last Diesel will be minted or will be available to be minted in 116 years.
I like distribution mechanisms that require you to pay fees to miners on L1.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing, is that actually what we believe will happen is that once everybody wants Diesel, and it's already happened, there's already competition going as we speak to claim the Diesel for this, whatever block it is now. But it will converge where miners will simply claim the diesel. So what does that mean? So that's when miners are claiming the diesel, then you can create smart contract systems that are external, where you can actually bribe miners you can provide incentives to miners that are alternative to Bitcoin currency itself. So that's an interesting thing, because more complicated incentive structures for miners creates more markets for things like staking, for things like even just the future of Bitcoin. We'll see it evolve. But diesel is kind of like an experiment where it's just a simple like a mechanism where you can have alternative incentive structures to bring value to miners and help secure the network.
Yeah, and diesel is not sold to VCs. You have to mine it. And it's similar to only
like free fair.
It's only hard coded alkane in the indexer.
It's the special alkane. It's the first. It's like alkanes are all numbered in the order that they are created. So alkane. So that's the 0th alkane. It's
like Ordi.
It's like Ordi, but it's the alkane way.
Diesel is the Ordi of alkane.
It's the first alkanization of crude oil. It's the first alkanization of crude oil. It's diesel. It's meant for really robust, industrial use cases like mining.
Hell yeah, get your diesel, you guys. I do love the diesel, fuel energy theme. That's very maxi of you.
Yeah, when we settled on diesel, we were like, "This is it." And I think it was like all of us were like, "Yes." And
nailed it, absolutely nailed it.
Why not?
This is a topic that's become near and dear to my heart. Is basically like, okay, we are clearly moving into a world where Bitcoin is going to be scaled in one way or another. It needs to happen, or we're going to live in a BlackRock future only. But how do you make sure that miners on L1 get paid in that universe? And I think this is a great option. So thank you guys.
Yes.
Awesome. This was fucking awesome, you guys. You guys are absolutely crushing. So is your Discord the place that people should go to get their information about how to mine diesel? How do people mine diesel?
You have to join the Discord.
Join the Discord.
We've been very careful about making it developer only. We only have docs. You can't use it in our wallet yet. It's CLI. So it's mostly developers. They're building an alkanes that have figured
Are they trading it on secondary? Is it selling on secondary yet or not yet?
Well, we
it needs to go on the wallet? How do people get this? If you have coin control, if you have a Sparrow wallet, can you get diesel?
We'll release details soon. But you may be able to get them on the new AMM that is coming out to the Alkanes universe. If we have any time, maybe we could talk about very soon. We haven't staged announcements yet, but there is an AMM coming, which is developed by someone who knows Rust very well, maybe. Myself, of course.
Okay, all right.
So I'm very proud of that AMM design. It actually is modeled very closely to Uniswap v2, which is very very much battle tested in its structure and the actual in its simplicity as well. So I think that all the concepts that we map over directly from Uniswap, but we have our own kind of spin on it. But we're shipping effectively the AMM for alkanes, and so you can definitely get diesel there.
Interesting.
But it will show. We're kind of waiting for that to be live, because you don't kind of want people to create assets and live on an island and then trade them with a PSBT.
Exactly.
They're like, it's the same as runes. But also the AMM is a full expression of a dApp that you could build. It has every type of contract: factory contracts, pooling contracts, rewards contracts, governance contracts.
Are you going to build a front end for this? Is there going to be an Odin fun competitor? Okay.
It'll be a front end. It will have the ability to connect to wallets, but then we'll have full software where you're like, okay, this is how you build a full dApp and connect it to wallets and create smart contracts.
So
it's really helpful for developers.
You would say this would be it sounds like maybe you're building an Odin fund, but actually all on layer 1. Because it's metaprotocol based instead.
You could say that. You could say that. I think I would agree with that. I think that it also serves as a great, a full end-to-end, front to back, a canonical example of a alkanes dApp, and so that's kind of a very important proof of concept. And we're going to take it all the way.
Hell yeah, you guys. Awesome. I can't wait to see it. I hope it's named something really cool too. I bet you guys will come up with something perfect.
Oh, it's cool. It's cool. It's too cool.
We were going to call it Diesel, and then we switched. We're like, Diesel's better for the first token.
We have a cooler name now.
No, but for your first app, you know what I mean? For your Odin fun, you're going to have a Diesel fun.
Oh, it's cool. You're on the right track there, but it is, I'm going to warn you, it's pretty cool.
I'm ready. Okay. Leave me hanging. I'm
that's
okay. All right. Until next time, you guys.
Next episode.
Yeah. Thank you guys so much for coming.
Thanks for having us.
So fun.
Thank you so much.